Hey guys, welcome to Juicy Tea, where I read out the best stories on Reddit, so you don't have to. The funny, shocking, and satisfyingly juicy. Am I the a-hole for telling my in-laws if they want a grandchild, they should give my wife her inheritance now? Our first post comes from the Am I the a-hole subreddit, posted by Cool Temperature 316. Basically, my in-laws want their only child, my wife Diana, to start pumping out grandchildren. Diana is 28 and just finishing her PhD. Then she wants to get established in a career before we start a family. My in-laws know how much money I make, and they know that we could live comfortably off my earnings. But that isn't what Diana wants. She has worked her butt off to get where she is, and she wants to reap the rewards of her hard work. She also says that once she's working, then I can cut back on my hours and relax a little. I'm a welder and I've been working since I was 15, so literally half my life. I make a very good living in return for a lot of fairly hard work. I've supported Diana and her education. We have a house, she has a good car, and will graduate without student loans. We have a good life. We want a few more years alone before we start our family. Over Christmas, the in-laws just wouldn't drop it, and I finally snapped. I said if they wanted grandchildren, then they could reimburse us for her education. They could further pay her the salary that she'd be giving up, and when she finally returns to work, they could pay her the difference between what she could be earning and what her entry-level position pays. Or they could pay for a nanny so that my wife could work. Or they could just back off and wait for us to be ready. They said they couldn't afford all that, so I asked them how they expected us to afford it. I said if it really was what they wanted, they could just give her the inheritance that would be coming her way now instead of later. They got all offended and said it's not hers until they don't need it anymore. Diana asked me to drop it. She's tried dozens of times to explain to her parents why we're waiting. They just ignore her. They've always ignored what we want with our lives. They've been very cold since Christmas. They seem to think that I was a rude a-hole for pointing out the costs of what they were asking for. A lot of her family agree with them that I went too far in asking them to pay if they want a grandchild now instead of later. You weren't really asking to be paid though. You were just highlighting the cost and the impact it would have, and the fact that they wouldn't want to pay it either. They didn't like that. Am I the a-hole for telling my son's girlfriend that he was cheating on her? Then she broke up with him. Posted by Unique Fact 6358. I have a son Jason, 16 male, and he's a good boy. I raised him all by myself and raised him to be a good man, or so I thought. He had a beautiful girlfriend, Sophia, 16 female, who I loved very much, like she was my own child. She came around often and was very kind to me and my son. She loved my son very much, and he loved her too. He was always telling me how pretty she was and how much he loved her, and I thought it was very sweet. I had a high school sweetheart too, which is Jason's dad, but unfortunately, we got a divorce. Jason and Sophia's relationship reminded me a lot of me and my ex-husband. Anyway, one day, as I was walking up to tell him that dinner was ready, I heard my son talking to a girl on the phone in his room. I asked him, "Is that Sophia? Can I say hi?" He said it wasn't Sophia, it was his other girlfriend. I was shocked by these words. I would never imagine my son cheating on a girl who loved him very much, and he loved her too. I said, "Get off the phone and come down. Dinner's ready." As we sat down for dinner, I confronted him about the girl he was talking to. I said, "Who was that girl? You have a girlfriend. You can't cheat." He simply replied, "I can do whatever I want to. They're just girls. I don't care about their feelings." I was speechless. I can't believe my son said that. I raised him to be a good boy, not an F-boy. I told him that he needed to tell the other girl the truth, that he has a girlfriend. But he said no, that he could keep both of them. I knew that it was wrong, so I decided to tell his girlfriend. I texted her the next morning telling her the truth. She was devastated. Her boyfriend of 2 years was cheating on her with some girl he met like a week ago. I felt really bad for her and apologized on my son's behalf. She thanked me for telling her and said she was breaking up with him. I respected her decision and said it was the right thing to do. My son ran downstairs telling me that Sophia broke up with him and that she knew that he was cheating. I told him that I was the one who told her and he had a right fit at me. I said it was unfair to her and it was the right choice for her to break up with him. He was very upset, but I think he deserves it. Am I the a-hole? Down in the comments, Goffy Kless says, not the a-hole, in any way. Boy needs to realize actions have consequences. Crazy respect for doing that. That's a hard lesson to teach your own kiddo, but good on you for not shying away from it. Try to sneak a foreclosure, lose my business and everyone else's. Our next story comes from the pettyrevenge subreddit, posted by ChillDude890. For anyone who has ever served on a HOA board, you know that most violations, accounting and general management of the HOA, especially with a neighbourhood the size that I run, is handled by a property management company. This is mainly because it would be too expensive and biased to have someone who lives in the community handle all of these duties alone. A dirty little secret of these companies, however, is that many of them will make their prices cheaper by secretly passing fining policies onto the homeowners that the board has no control over. Hence today's story. Main story. About a month ago, we were conducting a regular HOA meeting. We've been having them fairly often to keep our board, management company rep, and homeowners in sync since we've been hearing complaints about bad behaviour from the management company. This particular meeting, however, things almost got out of control. As soon as we finished all of our checklist items, we asked the homeowners if there were any questions. A couple stood up and I saw the man holding a paper with a shaking hand, which I quickly learned was due to his anger. Over the next 10 minutes, he explained how he was here to plead his case for the board to not foreclose on his house, especially since he's been making payments on a large debt for a long time. Without going into too many details, the discussion got extremely heated because our management company had told us to not get involved since this homeowner had already been involved with our lawyers. After lots of arguing, the meeting was finally over. I left totally confused because I knew that homeowner was in good standing, and if he was willing to pay, which records showed he had called to do, why couldn't he? I'd been told by my property manager to not take any action, but I decided to call BS. I called the legal firm representing the board, which I was told to not do, even though they represent us. After talking to the firm for an hour, I found out that the management company hadn't allowed this homeowner to pay his fines because of some petty procedural technicality, and that instead, they were slapping fines on him like there was no tomorrow. I quickly told the lawyer to offer to settle his balance with no fines, and the issue was resolved the next day. Revenge. I spent more time looking into our management company. I found out that they would underbid management contract costs and supplement them by adding in their own fines onto homeowner collections without the board's approval. This is technically in the fining process, and while it's not illegal, it's highly unethical and disputable because it encourages the management company to fine and escalate non-issues to make more money. I honestly felt horrendous because I had no idea due to it being a one-line clause in the contract. I also received a call from our community manager urging us to stop waiving fines as it sets a bad example. That really set me over the edge. Livid with this phone call and the new knowledge about fines, I found a new management company and terminated our contract immediately. In addition, I believe I found a loophole where all charges unfairly pressed against the homeowners will not be recouped by the company, and the HOA can't be liable for them since they are a pass-through. During an issue with the property investment company, I met about a dozen other HOA board members in my area and discovered about 6 of them are using the same company, even the same community manager. I urged them to look into the same issues, and they soon discovered the horrors themselves. It sounds like all of them will be terminating their contracts soon. One of the other association presidents actually knows the state council for HOA rules, and they're now working with them to make this practice illegal. If it passes, this entire company would go under. While I'm not holding my breath, I am certainly following the legal proceedings closely, and have even offered to testify before a committee regarding why this rule is needed. It sounds like deliberations begin in January. As for the community manager, the person helping our community, they've lost over half of their contracts, and the manager came begging for me to stay. They even offered to stop the fining policy in the most corporate talk way possible, where they basically gave themselves plausible deniability if they do it again. I told him that his property manager deserved what she had coming to her, and that their policies were stone cold terrible. He tried to reply, but I just hung up. I was too angry. Watch these management companies closely. They're seriously almost all snakes in the grass, waiting to screw over board members and community members. A kind and compassionate HOA board member? Wow! I feel like I only ever hear the really bad HOA stories. I'm glad this guy cares so much. Remember, I post new content every day, so subscribe for more juicy tea.